Hello everybody! Welcome to another Sunday Funday, and yes, I'm still wearing the same shirt because I watched this for a little bit earlier. And I decided to throw this right at the end of Bulletproof 2, Bullet 2 Proof. Actually, almost would be a better name because it's just as half-assed as the entire film. And what movie did I actually watch alongside Bulletproof shit? As it says below. Big Time Adolescence.
What the? You permanently inked Tongue Daddy to your skin. What does that even mean? Oh my god.
Now, I know this does not seem like the kind of movie I should be reviewing. One, I don't tend to talk about more down-to-earth movies. I tend to talk about more bombastic movies. I tend to actually give my opinions on stuff that's a little bit, larger than this. Not that I need to, and this should be my sole case of where I talk about stuff, but I tend to also be a little less... I tend to not give as many shits about movies that are coming-of-age films. At least ones that are from this time period. More, this time period being now. So, to kind of explain that real fast, and then I will get into my review finally of Big Time Adolescence and my feelings on it. I, of course, am older. I am 32 right now. As of filming this, right at the second, to help date this video a little. I came of age whenever, it was the early 2000s. That was when I was starting to finally get out of being a teenager. Now, not saying that means that I don't think anything of coming-of-age films before that, but for me, I found a little bit more enjoyment of coming-of-age films, especially if that with, say, Pretty in Pink. Can't Hardly Wait, for another example. Hell, even American Pie, I think, is a bit of a coming-of-age film. Even though I think the second one is a more superior film. I think many people do agree upon that, especially after looking back on American Pie, especially since the first one's a little skeevy in a lot of regards. I think there's a lot more enjoyable coming-of-age films because they still had a bit of that Hollywood bombast. Not that that is a requirement for a coming-of-age film to be perfect, but I think too many coming-of-age films as of late, such as Tall Girl for extreme example, or even 8th Grade, hell, technically like Booksmart. And there's probably a few others I can think of. I think it's, what's it called? I forgot about it, but it's where this one guy, he's coming out as being gay. Not that those are bad. None of those, with the exception of Tall Girl out and Out, is a bad film. Just they're very, very plain. There's not a whole lot to them. And it's maybe the big reason why I was very apoplectic towards watching Big Time Adolescence. I was like, okay, starring Pete Davidson, and also pretty much the coming out of role in a way for a young guy. Sorry, I'm literally scrolling through IMDb. If I can, it won't. It's just when I scroll right. There we go. Shit. Griffin Gluck. Fuck me. I should add that down, but I'm not gonna, because fuck it at this point. Yeah, Griffin Gluck, as far as I can see, he's not been in much. It's just been small stuff. This is his first major role. And, of course, Pete Davidson, better known for being on Saturday Night Live. I also know him from What Men Want. And there was something else I looked at. I was like, oh, yeah, he was in that. I forgot about. But big thanks Saturday Night Live right now. Sorry. At least you're getting money, Pete. Now, it's not that, again, it's not that I hate movies like this or anything, just I usually always found them very tedious and just not as interesting as they should be. Hell, I was thinking of, or another movie I was thinking of, that it's a little bit closer to when I should be more worried about coming of age films, when I should have been watching them more, was, but it didn't resonate with me like it should, and also a movie I think that parallels with this a little bit, and that is Charlie Bartlett. Those who have never seen Charlie Bartlett, don't. It's not all that good. It's kind of just meh in a lot of regards. And honestly, it doesn't get you any warm cockle feelings. it just won't warm your cockles in any way. It's woefully adequate. That's just the biggest problem with a lot of these coming of age films. And I don't know why, but Big Time Adolescence never felt that way for me. It's strange to think of it in this regards, because it should be just an outright, alright movie that I'm going to watch and forget 3 weeks later. But I think because of the way that Pete Davidson has his main character, and also the fact that our protagonist, in a way, his name is Mo, or Monroe, actually. I don't know why his parents gave him a last name for a first name. Just picking on him. But he has befriended one of his sister's ex-boyfriends from when he was very young. Pretty much think like when he was about 9 years old or so. I'd say he's probably about 9. I think it was when he was 9 is when it's supposed to be. And her sister's ex-boyfriend, his name was Zeke. He was, a nice way to put it, he's a bit of a pothead, a bit of a troublemaker. Everybody kind of goes through one of those kind of phases. And Zeke is a loser, for lack of a better way to put it. He is an outright loser. But maybe it's because of how Pete Davidson does things. Maybe it's because of how he acts it. Which is kind of like just this massive, Cheshire smile at times. And many other like weird mannerisms that he's kind of picked up from Saturday Night Live. They make the character kind of lovable. It's like a dopey puppy is a nice way to think of it. There's nothing egregiously terrible about his character. Sure, he does sling pot. He is a bad influence. But it's one of those, even getting older, I can actually see it's like, okay, I don't see where I'm going to completely hate Pete Davidson's character. He can be a bit of an asshat at times, and a bit too self-centered, but in the same instance, you kind of feel for the guy. It's one of the problems that actually comes up later in the movie that I will get into. And fair warning, I'm going to spoil a bit of the end of the film. And also, I have to kind of spoil a bit of this movie to kind of explain my big issue with the film. But yeah, the nicest way to put it is Monroe's been hanging out with Pete, and eventually he kind of gets to talking with one of his kind of friends, ends up inviting Monroe to a party if Monroe can get them alcohol. And also, it turns out that Zeke is like, hey, you want to sell him some pot? You can sell some pot too. Just make sure not to ask for less than $200. Pretty much he gets that because he's like, rich kids in high school don't know any better about the good price of drugs. It's like, okay, that's actually kind of funny. And the whole story all revolves around Monroe's burgeoning and growing popularity because of the fact that he is becoming a miniature version of Zeke in a way. He's slinging drugs, he's selling drugs for Zeke, and he's moving alcohol and shit like that. And on top of all of it, Zeke kind of does begin to pressure him a bit into it. That is a actual understandable thing that you see where Zeke is going to go to there. You don't respect Zeke because of it, but you do see, okay, yeah, this is probably where it's going to go. But never did it feel as manipulative as it should be. Like, what I mean by that is in the fact that for this to try and make Zeke to be a bad guy, and if it really wanted to just be comical about it or more Hollywood about it, it would straight up have Zeke, push him, almost become threatening to Monroe. But no, he never really does that. Instead, he's just being a bad influence on him. And in fact, many times he actually tries to have a heart to heart with Monroe, and he decides to be a bit better of a father figure at times, or a brother figure to Monroe than Monroe's own father, played by John Cryer, strange enough, because John Cryer needs some work between all the, DC shows and this, I guess. But John Cryer can play doofus a bit well. Here, he's never meant to be just a straight up doofus. He's just meant to be a guy who's just a bit out of touch with his, adolescent son. And where I begin to have some problems, because I have to get into the issues I have with this movie, because I want to eventually get into what I like about the film. There's a couple issues. The first one is the fact that there is kind of hints that Zeke and Monroe's sister, I don't remember her name, she only comes up here and there, where they are still sleeping together. In fact, behind her boyfriend's back at the time. And that kind of just comes up and just kind of leaves the conversation. It never really comes the fuck back up, except for like in one instance whenever Zeke's then girlfriend gets mad at Zeke and ends up leaving him and then ends up sleeping with Monroe, which kind of is a little because of the fact that, she's obviously older. She's got to be out of high school at least, because Zeke doesn't seem to be one who's after, young girls. Maybe one who's a little bit younger than him, but not like, hey, I'm going after them schoolgirls. And also, I know people could be like, well, she's still really younger. And if she's 5 years younger, it's a little weird, but it's not the weirdest thing ever. They could have even went to the same high school. In fact, I don't think she's even that young. I want to say she's like 19, maybe 20. It's weird she's sleeping with Monroe simply because of that age difference. Especially knowing that Monroe was, Zeke's friend and one of his best friends. But it's actually kind of heartwarming in the fact that Zeke, whenever he finds out about this, he isn't angry with Monroe. One, because Zeke does kind of even admit that it's like he liked her, but he's just moving on. He always is just going on and through life. He's not worried about each and every little consequence. And that's one of the issues and one of the, tragedies of Zeke's character is the fact that he's never going to change. He's been that way for a while. But then that leads to the other big issue. By the end of the entire film, they learn that Monroe is the one who's pretty much peddling the drugs and everything, and they end up the police come to get him, and they do arrest him. And originally Zeke said, hey, just tell them it's me. It's like, what are they going to take from me? It's one of the best way to put it, it's one of the few times that you actually truly get to see Zeke willingly give up a lot of things. Because here's the thing, you're contributing to the delinquency of minors, that's a bunch of tickets, but it's still an issue. And on top of everything, they would then have rights to be able to go to his house and seize all the drugs, and they could hit him for trafficking. He would get a felony. He would do some actual time. But Zeke selfishly is willing to let that be. He's fine with that outcome, especially if it means that his best friend Monroe is able to get off of it. And there is some good and bad with what they eventually decide to do. They eventually decide to say, Monroe says no, he is going to fess up to it and accept his own complacency, for lack of a better way to describe it. In fact, he even does think of it in that regard, that it is his fault that it happened. And yeah, it is, but at the same time, it's also, he's within his right to also say, yeah, this is Zeke's fault too. Now, after that, after this kind of end part, and mind you, this last like couple minutes of the movie, they show that Monroe, he got expelled, he's having to do community service, he's having to take piss tests all the time, probably going to be doing it until he's 18. And at the beginning of the movie, 16. And then he comes back across Zeke. He has not seen him, obviously, in this time it shows 3 months later. He has obviously not seen Zeke, and they kind of talk about certain things, kind of relive some of the old moments. You know, not about the drugs, but more importantly, just, you know, like this whole running gag they have about, you know, getting their dog ran over or losing something like that. And Monroe has a look of somebody who realizes, yeah, he's not going to change. You know, it was nice to reminisce with him, but he's never going to be a different person. And then Monroe metaphorically and physically leaves Zeke behind as Zeke, you know, goes back to doing what he does. And there's a problem there. Not that I don't like the metaphor of it. There is actually a lot of good there for that. It's just that that's how the movie ends. Like, literally, he's just driving away and then cut to black. And it's like, there is an idea behind there, but maybe it's because of the fact that all the acting in this movie is actually very, very damn good. Like, all the acting is fantastic. Even the main actor, he does what he needs to do well. Pete Davidson, his entire shtick, like, even when he seems to be a little over the top, it works for the character that he's supposed to be, so it never feels off for any reason. And it's like, okay, this is really, you know, interesting actual story. Like, you actually kind of feel invested. You feel like, you know, you really want to see what the outcome is going to be for all these different characters. And the most you kind of see that Zeke is done, or still just in his same place. He's never going to change in terms of the person that he is. He's never going to change on what he does. While Monroe does move on, but we don't really see what that entails. And I think that's where the problem is. Because Monroe is your main character, without that scene of him flourishing more or changing for the better, we don't see how this is a better solution, leaving Zeke behind, especially considering that he's gonna have a rap sheet. He's gonna have problems later on in life. Not that we need to see all the way up to his death, but in the fact that we don't see what this entails to Monroe now beyond what is said to us. It feels just a little too brief. Like, that ending just, like, everything was clicking on high gear. Like I said, acting was fantastic. There were numerous moments where this is meant to be more drama than it is comedy, much like Pretty in Pink. But always I found myself laughing at certain things that I probably shouldn't be, but I thought they were kind of funny. I was really kind of vibing with a lot of stuff. I really felt for Monroe the entire time. I even felt for Zeke. I felt for Monroe's dad, even though he is a bit of a prick, but you do kind of understand for him. And never did anybody feel like they were being, for lack of a better way to put it, being chopped off at the legs for the sake of other characters. It never felt like one character had to suffer for the other characters to be good. I'm not sure if I'm explaining it as well as I should, but just, I didn't think that, oh, well, this character has to be less developed and more one-dimensional just so these other characters can feel more three-dimensional. Sure, technically you could say that John Cryer's character is probably the more one-dimensional, but in the same instance, you kind of understand it from a dad's perspective. He is given some of that out because he is a dad, and he's having to deal with an issue that he probably could have dealt with well beforehand, but he's still trying to be, at least a semi-understanding dad. And it's kind of, and because of that, because of all the characters being so interesting, you actually really wanting to learn more about them. You want to see more about them. You want to, just keep seeing more about it. I think that's the reason why, because it just cuts off at the end. And there isn't really anything to kind of keep going with the characters. And it doesn't feel like a good resolution. Because of that, the ending just feels so flat. It feels very, very fucking flat. And that's like one of the biggest problems with the movie. It's just that ending is flat as hell. Like, it's like it attempts to do this beautiful dive and belly flops. It does all the perfect corkscrews, everything, and it just is able to pull off all these neat moves and flap right on its face. It's kind of bad in the fact that it does that. Not in the fact the movie itself is bad. Like, there's so much going for it. Like I said, the acting is actually phenomenal. Only one technical kind of storyline that kind of gets brought up, the issues between Zeke and Monroe's older sister, that it just never kind of really goes anywhere. And honestly, it could have done with some kind of resolution for that storyline, but I guess we technically got that at the end. And I almost want to believe that that is the idea. It's like the movie wanted to have a harsher parallel in the fact that we all need to eventually leave our adolescence behind. Our more crazier urges and everything like that. We need to eventually move beyond that. And that is a good talking point. That's actually a commendable idea behind a coming of age story, especially considering all these other movies have just been just a story that never felt like it punched as hard as it should. The other one I was just thinking of that's a coming of age story that kind of came out a little bit after I came of age was Easy A. Not that this has a great amount of parallels. I will try to connect it though. That obviously felt like a Hollywood byproduct. That felt like a movie that was written and obviously directed. Not just in the fact that it is a movie, but it was written and directed with a sole purpose to get this one message across. And we're going to have all this Hollywood stuff that just, it never felt real. Here, it feels realistic, but it still has enough of that Hollywood stuff that still makes it entertaining. That's always the problem that Hollywood has had lately with coming of age stories. They're trying to balance entertainment with realism. And sometimes they err a little bit too much on that realism and there's not enough entertainment. So they constantly feel very samey. They feel very bland. They feel very basic. I still cannot remember the one movie about the teenager who's figured out he's gay and he's trying to come out. I think it's called like, I don't know. It's like, I think it's I Love You, Charlie Morton or something like that. I can't remember. But this movie is actually able to balance out the entertainment with the actual, coming of age. It balances the realism. None of this feels like this would be completely fake. None of this feels like something that you would expect to be in a schlocky, like 80s film written and starring a bunch of 30-year-olds and obviously not really about teenagers. Here, it feels like teenagers. The drama is teenager-esque in a lot of ways, but it never leans too much into the scummier parts of teenagers, which is always a good idea to stay away from. And on top of all of it, it still has enough of that, Hollywoodness that you can still enjoy the film. Is it the most fractious comedy ever or anything like that? No. But I do actually think this is a movie that is worth watching. I think it's even worth watching multiple times. One, it's on Hulu, so you can watch it multiple times for free. But more importantly than any of that is just the fact that when the movie's good, it glues your attention. You just want to sit there and watch it. You want to enjoy every bit of it. You just love a lot of it. But when it gets that ending, I think that's where it, instead of, driving off into the distance and being victorious, instead it ends up veering off the road and kind of crashes a bit. None of it's not terrible. No, it's actually a fantastic movie. I would say it's one of the best movies that has come out this year, which is strange to say because usually these coming of age films are kind of, oh, I've seen that, done that. And technically there is certain aspects to this that have been seen there, done this before. But I think because of that relationship between Monroe and Zeke, that is actually very infectious and very, very enjoyable to sit there and just watch, and you actually kind of feel for every character involved. That actually elevates the movie to such a much more enjoyable status. Now, like I said, the ending still, it sucks shit on a toast. It's such a just. It's like having the greatest sex of your life, and right as you're about to come, you get punched in the face by a dude with a 500-pound dick. It's such an abrupt ending, and it feels like they weren't 100% sure where to leave this off on, so they decided to go, yeah, we're going to kind of go for the, pseudo, metaphorical ending, but at the same time, kind of leave some issues here. Whoops. And not only that, but you actually do kind of feel for Monroe in a lot of regards. You do want to know how his relationships go. It's like you're pretty sure nothing went forward with Holly because he was pretty much a, revenge fuck. But you still want to know, it's like, well, did he get with the other girl he actually really liked? Has he found somebody else that he actually enjoys? Anything. Did she forgive him because he was being a dick? What happened here? Fortunately, like I said, the movie just doesn't get into it enough, and it's kind of an issue. But hey, it's better to have a movie that leaves you with wanting a bit more than a movie that's leaving you with wanting because it never gave you anything. This gave me so much that I wanted that closure, and I think that's like I said, that's the issue. Just there isn't that closure. There's only a bit of a closure with the relationship between Zeke and Monroe. And that's it. Other than that, there's still storylines sitting up in the air, and we want one's like, hey, can we get them come down? Let's fix them real quick, or at least try to resolve them. They don't have to be tied up in a little bow, but still. And I mean, sure, some people can say, well, he got expelled, so obviously he's not with the other girl. Like, how do you know though? She might have seen that he was being genuine with her and was trying to finally come clean about who he was. Yeah, that's just a personal opinion. If you've seen Big Time Adolescence and you have a different idea, let me know. I'm curious to see. This is one of those movies I think that people will ponder upon. I think people will talk about it constantly. Once they decide to finally watch it, it's like I think they'll enjoy the hell out of it. There's a lot of stuff about this that some of it I can kind of even see with a little bit of my teenagehood, and some of it I know from friends. And it's one of these things where I don't. Maybe that's another thing that it clicked with me so well. Usually these movies just kind of pass me by. I don't even fucking notice them half the time. This one, it didn't. It really stuck with me. I'm still thinking about it to this minute. Like, even when I went downstairs a little bit ago, I was like, alright, let me do something before I start shooting this. And I was still kind of thinking, it's like, well, what think about this with, Big Time Adolescence? What about this and this and that? I don't know. It's actually a good idea that the movie does leave me thinking. I will say that much. Even though it's not a satisfying ending, I will fully stick to that until I get some resolution for me. I still think it's enjoyable. I think it's worth a watch. Now, if you want a full score for the film, I probably would give this actually a 9. It seems like that may sound really, really high praise because I gave like Guns Akimbo a 9. Or no, I gave Guns Akimbo a 10. But it's just that where, again, my scale's just, can vary from movie to movie where I'm going to be willing to let certain shit slide. But here, where it worked fantastically. It made for such a compelling story. But when it failed, it did hurt it quite a bit. Like if it had just a slight bit more of an impact on its ending and not fell as far as it did, I think this would be one of the best coming of age films. Instead, I think that it might hurt itself a little bit in that regards, but other than that, I think people are really going to enjoy the hell out of this. The characters are at least all fucking likable as hell. And nobody are you made to hate, which is always the good idea. Like, it's sucky whenever you constantly have to deal with bad parents. Not just parents who are just, bad people, but in the fact that they're, obviously the bad guy. You're not supposed to care for the parents. You're not supposed to like them. But here, there's a lot more positive to it. And that's something I gotta commend them on. At least they made a damn fine film. Man, not only that, but they made me actually give a shit about all these characters. So, hey, kudos, guys. But hey, that's my feelings on Big Time Adolescence. Let me know if you agree, how you felt on the ending, or anything. Let me know. I'm always curious to see how everybody else felt. But hey, that's my feelings on this. And hey, that's 2 Sunday Fundays. And unfortunately, I didn't see a third movie. But I will let you all go so that way y'all can let me know what you're thinking. And I have no idea what's going to be for next week. It'll be something, I know that much. But until then, I will see you all there. So, bye-bye, everybody.